Hi, Tricia. Welcome to the Leaders Lab.
Hi, Ken. I'm super excited to be here with you today.
Well, as I mentioned with you right before we got on here, I was just listening to you on another podcast. You've got such an incredible backstory. Can you share it with our audience?
I'd love to. I am from Missouri, a small town in Missouri, and I grew up knowing I was going to move to New York City. I wanted to be a dancer. I was watching ballet on PBS, Nutcracker with Kelsey Kirkland and Mikhail Baryshnikov, and had posters of them on my wall. Told my parents I'm going to go to dance school, and they obliged. Luckily, they were able to put me into dance school with Sharon McGuire and Lillian DeNoyer. They were my first teachers, and I'm still very close with Sharon McGuire, Lillian's daughter. I'm actually flying her out to New York in a couple of weeks to celebrate her 75th birthday. I'm
Amazing.
taking her to see a Broadway show. We're still very close. And so I was always a dancer. I knew I wanted to contribute by entertaining people and by taking people on a journey and by telling a story through physicality. And I moved to New York City from Missouri after I got a BFA in dance to pursue my professional dance career. I danced all around the world with companies like Lucinda Childs, Big Dance Theater, Robert Wilson, David Gordon, Pickup Performance Company, Ben Munisterry. And I got to perform in theaters like the Paris Opera House, the Vienna Opera House, the opera houses in Palermo, Brooklyn Academy of Music, Lincoln Center. And as I sit here, I shared with you before we started recording, I live on 55th and Ninth in New York City, and I literally am looking out the window right now out the Alvin Ailey Dance Theater. And so dance has always been my heart and my soul. And having had such a successful career in dance, I also knew that I wanted to wrap up my career so that I could have a bigger legacy. I could only affect the people in the moment by being on stage and the number of people that were in the audience. And I knew that I wanted to make a bigger impact in the world and didn't know how I was going to do that necessarily. So I transitioned out of performing and moved into directing, choreography, writing, producing, started working in film, television, and more theater, and was just doing my thing. And before I knew it, I had a friend reach out and say, I am performing a really important talk. It's a TEDx talk, and I want you to direct me. And I worked with her just like I work with actors: script analysis, intention, choreography, and blocking, performance. And I created an environment that was like a one woman show for her.
Hmm.
And then she planted the seed that people need this kind of direction in order to become more effective communicators and speakers. And I thought, well, that's interesting. I never heard of this as a thing. I was not on social media. I did not have an online presence. I did not study leadership. I've always been an entrepreneur. And so I think I innately know how to lead. And I'm a Virgo, so I'm really organized. And
Hmm.
those two things work well together. So I took her up on it and I started working with speakers and I founded my company, the Big Talk Academy. And since doing that, we have put thousands of thought leaders and professionals onto big stages. We have put people in front of Congress, the United Nations. They've run for office, they've created movements. And that is the kind of lasting legacy that I now get to impact the world, is by supporting thought leaders and speaking effectively through with dignity, respect, humility, grace, compassion, and love. And that's how I get to have this vision and mission of uniting humanity through speech.
Very cool. Was it a tough transition going from, because it sounded like the way you described it, living in Missouri, that this idea of getting to New York City was, like you said, always in your mind. It sounds like it goes way, way back, and that you were going to do it through dance, right? And so it sounds like, I mean, first, let me clarify that. Was it going to be through dance, even when you were a kid?
That I would move to New York City.
Yeah, as a dancer.
Oh yeah, it was
Yeah.
so clear. I never thought I couldn't do it. I had no fear. I it was just, yeah, I'm gonna move to New York and be a dancer. That's it.
Yeah, that's really cool. And so the follow up to that then is, so you make it happen. Like, you identify with it, you make it happen. You, I'm sure, worked your butt off, but you get there, you do that, you do it for a number of years. There's going to be a lifespan to that. Was that a tough transition, or was it kind of easy because going from being a dancer to then being, I guess there was a transitionary period where you were directing and stuff like that. But what was that like? Was there an identity shift in that, or did it all just kind of happen, kind of in a nice flow for you?
It was very intentional.
Yeah.
I knew that I wanted to go out on top as a dancer, and I didn't want to be limping on and off stage all the time. And I was a very um, the dance that I did was very intense. So I had both knees done, a foot done, and I also knew that I was at the top of my game still.
Yeah.
And so I intentionally chose to close out my high performing dance career the same way the Buddhist Zen sculptures do the mandalas.
Mhm.
The monks create these gorgeous sand sculptures in the shape of a mandala, and it's all different colors and it's all different ornate styles. And when they're done, they wipe it away because nothing is permanent.
It's
And so my dance career, I created a one woman show called Dining Alone. And I used all of the solos that I had been gifted by other choreographers throughout my 30 years of dancing. And then I started choreographing my own and I put them together in a one woman show that I did. It was a 90-minute show where it was just me doing all these amazing dances. And I hired a dresser so I could sit down in between and she could dress me so my quads wouldn't be filled up with lactic acid.
Yeah.
I hired a massage therapist, a yoga instructor. I knew exactly what I was going to eat. This was like, an athletic
Yeah, yeah.
experience.
It sounds like it.
And I wrapped up this career the way I wanted to at the top of my game. And it was completely satisfying. And then it was next.
God, that's
What's
really
next?
cool. Where does all this like, because I'm even going back, I'm thinking of you being, whatever, 8 years old in Missouri. And I'm like, it seems like your whole life you've been very intentional, right? Very focused. Where does that come from? I mean, is that your parents? Is it you? I mean, is it a mixture of all of that? Like, where did it come from?
This is such a wonderful question. And I've been pondering and contemplating this a lot recently because I'm writing my third book. And this is what I'm trying to deconstruct for my audience. And it is definitely innate. And it was very unconscious for a long time. And now I'm bringing it to my consciousness so that I can share it with others in service of others.
Yeah.
I would say that it really was an innate gift that I was given from my other lifetimes that has set me up to understand the importance of intentionality now. And now that I'm older and I'm wiser, I can actually deconstruct that in service not only of being even more productive with my intention, but now I can share it with others so that you too can have more intention.
And that was kind of the nature of my question, right? Is there's got to be some nuggets in there from somebody that's wired that way, right? And has been for a long time. It's not like, oh, the last 5 years it's been that way. It's like been since birth or shortly after, right? And that's really, really interesting. So along the way, you must have gotten really good at handling setbacks, well, I assume. Or do you even look at them that way? I mean,
That's that's so great to ask if I look at them that way. I no is not yet for me. And I heard no so many times as a dancer, audition after audition after audition. I was actually the dancer Ken in the room when they would call the numbers. And if they hadn't called mine, I would raise my hand and say, could you say those numbers again? Because I always thought they just forgot to say
yeah,
mine.
you
Like
must
I
have
couldn't
missed me.
believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely made a mistake. But I think that the for me, they weren't setbacks. One of my mantras is keep the story moving.
Mm.
And so when there was grief of not getting a job or grief of the movie not seeing the light of day, which happens all the time, I would give myself permission to grieve it and move on. And I think that's what kept me in the forward momentum and in the flow of not experiencing it as a setback. Also, I am a I'm a practicing Buddhist, so impermanence and detachment is part of my daily life.
Right, right. I think that I was coaching some guys actually just this morning, and we were talking about it, and we're all in a similar business industry. And I had a new initiative going, and I was talking to them about it, and they're like, "You just seem so confident right now in this particular initiative." And a couple of them were having struggle getting the same thing. And I said, "Well, if you believe in something strong enough, then that turns to faith a little bit, and then all the stuff that happens, I think, not just a little bit, a lot. It's sort of like I actually believe this outcome's going to happen. I believe I'm going to be a dancer in New York, no matter what. Doesn't mean I don't believe I won't get thrown some curveballs on that path. There will be, um, and I'll break my foot, and I'll have my legs operated on, and whatever else, but." I'm so confident that that's where it's going, and I know that when I've been aligned to something that strongly, everything that happens, even the stuff in the short term that feels bad or doesn't feel the best, it's sort of like just part of the process to me. It's like, well, whatever, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't knock you off course because you're so aligned, I think, with where you're going. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I want to speak to that a little bit. When you have that focus and that clarity and that direction along with the faith, anything that happens is going to create an ability to have more compassion as a leader. And it's going to teach you how to innovate as a leader. And I'll just kind of share with you, I've lived in New York City for a really, really long time. And I moved here in at the height of the AIDS epidemic. And so lots of my friends were dying right and left. Um, Tompkins Square Park at the time was a squatters, was like a village of tents.
Mm.
Tons of riots happening. I lived in the East Village during that time. Um, I lived through 9/11. I lived downtown after 9/11. I had to show my ID to get home, and I had a metallic taste in my mouth for months. Um, I met my husband, and we were supposed to get married in Mexico, and then the swine flu hit, so we couldn't go to Mexico. And of course, I live in New York, and this was the epicenter of the pandemic. And those experiences in my life have given me the ability to empathize and to be even more ferociously focused on my impact and how I show up every day.
How do you, especially with being in that epicenter of everything, and I'm not too far from it now. I lived in Brooklyn for a while, but now I'm just north, like I mentioned to you earlier. But you're in the epicenter of kind of everything, right? I mean, New York's like world headquarters for everything, culture and everything else. And some might argue that, but it's certainly right up there. So there's a lot of energy in the city, right? There's really amazing things, everything you've ever wanted. There's also, like you're saying, there's major tragedy, there's homelessness, there's the political divide that we have now. And again, you seem very aligned, very focused with where you're going. How do you kind of manage, I guess, the external with the internal in terms of where you're going, and how do you, I guess, kind of shield yourself or absorb but not get knocked off track by what's going on outside of your control?
Well, I think control is the perfect word here. Nothing is in our control.
Right.
The only thing we can control is how we respond to something
Yeah.
and what we think. And I spend a lot of time quiet. I spend a lot of time in contemplation and preparation. And I also know myself well enough to know that I'm not going to go out late at night to socialize. I'm going to go to bed early. I'm going to get up early. I'm going to take care of my body. I'm going to spend time with people who are playing at the same level and at the same vibration. I am not going to spend any time caring about what anybody thinks about me. I'm going to spend really quality time with my loved ones, and I'm going to pick and choose who I spend time with. And that keeps me grounded and it keeps me focused because tomorrow is a gift if it comes.
Mm.
And that means I need today to be 150% so that I know I have contributed everything I can in the precious time that I'm here.
That's a really cool answer. I'm thinking about a friend of mine who told me he had somebody that came up to him, and I'm not going to get into either side of politics or whatever, but just the point is will be made either way. Someone came up to my friend and said, "You should be absolutely outraged by what's going on, right? Or who's getting elected or whatever." And he said, well, I choose not to be outraged, right? Like that is something I get to control. And that's what reminded me of it. When you said we get to control our reaction, that's all we get to control, right? Is our emotional reaction to things. It doesn't mean we don't care. It just means, do I drive the whole car off the side of the road because something over here that I can't control bothers me because it's not the way I want it to be, right? And I think a lot of people are driving their cars off the side of the road metaphorically because things outside their control aren't going the way they want them to, and again, I try to balance that with caring and being involved, right, in the things that I do care about, but also with compartmentalizing that with, I do have loved ones like you, I have grandkids, I have a wife of 37 years, so there's so much good to focus on. So why do I want to watch the news channel that I don't want to watch to deliver me the stories that I don't want to hear, right? And can I just kind of thread the needle of being informed, involved to the degree that I want to be, and then still pursue the things that I want to do to have a fulfilled life?
Absolutely. And I think with love, your friend was placing their own fear onto you by saying you should be outraged.
Right.
Um, we have an opportunity as influential voices to use our platform responsibly and urgently, and knowing that every single thing you say has the impact of love or hate, good or evil. And I want to participate in the love and good side of things. And so if I get distracted by what I'm supposed to be feeling because of a situation, I can't be in love. I can't be
Right.
good. And I think what you're saying aligns with that perfectly.
Where did you seem to have a very deep knowledge now in personal development that came from, or self development that came from? I guess I'm wondering where it came from, because I know your life experience has been very deep and stuff, but I didn't hear any of that when you gave me the life story other than life lessons. So where did all of this come from? All this wisdom?
I had two amazing coaches that I hired about 1920, about 6 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago. And I remember they approached me to work with them. And I said, I want you to help me with my business, but I'm not interested in anything woo. I'm not interested in, pulling tarot cards. And, I am very, very, I'll do what you tell me to do if that's going to get me the results that I want. Meanwhile, they're giving me all these incredible books. Uh, and I opened up to the reality that I've always been connected deeply to source, and the universe was just waiting for me. And the second I opened up and gave over, my entire world changed. And I dove into uh, personal development, uh, awakening my awareness to the quantum field. And that study and that conscious, intentional desire to take my life and my family's life by modeling what's possible to the next level, I was all in. And I'm really curious, and I also love spending time with people who know more than me, which is why I always have coaches.
Mm.
And so I had a dance coach. I wanted to get an A+ on my physiology and anatomy AP biology class. So I hired a tutor. I've always hired people who know more than me to get me to the next level. And so I absolutely had coaches who brought an awareness into my field about what was possible. And I just studied head on.
Yeah, and I think it sounds like, again, being true to your personality going way back when you were a kid. It's like, if you're going to hire them and you're going to listen to them, you're going to take that advice, at least the stuff that applies, and not just use it for a little bit or to get through a situation, but it now becomes sort of part of who you are. So I'm curious to explore this part about the universe, and so you're very much a person that the universe is working for you, right? I mean, I would assume that, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you just seem to be aligned with, I kind of need to either get with the flow or get out of the way or something, but let it happen. Yeah.
We co-create. I would say we co-create.
Right.
I think that everything is definitely happening in the way it's meant to. I don't think things happen to us, I think, or for us. I think things are happening with us.
Hmm. It's funny. I went through recovery a few years ago, met a really great guy who became a friend, but he's an author and very smart guy. And he said, life, he had a little bit of a different take on it, but right in line with what we're talking about. But he said, early stages of recovery for him from a spiritual side were, life is happening to me, and then life is happening for me, and then life is happening through me.
Mm,
And that was, and it was very hard to stay in the life is happening through me, but if you're in the life is happening for me mindset long enough, you'll have these moments where you're like, whoa, I can't believe that just happened, like everything aligned, right? Like I didn't
yeah,
even do that much heavy lifting or whatever. But I agree with you. I'm also not in the camp where let's just manifest it all, and it shall be done. Like we've got to manifest and take a lot of action and do the stuff we're supposed to do at the same time.
absolutely. I am absolutely in action every single day, along with being conscious of what the evidence that I'm being given that it's all right. And I'll share a story. I'm featured in a documentary called Big Stages that's streaming on Amazon Prime. It's about my work with speakers. And this was a 2 year process of following 6 speakers around to observe their transformation. And it was one of the hardest things I've ever done, and one of the most fulfilling things, because I got to capture on the silver screen the transformation of these incredible speakers and human beings. And it was very special. And during the process, the last several months of the last year, I had 2 cats, Lola and Bella, and they were definitely my soul fur babies. I chose not to have children, so they were very much my children. And Lola was 18 and a half, and Joe and I made a very intentional decision based on her health that I was going to help her transition. And we did it in our home. And the morning that we made the decision to do this, I took her around and had her look out the window, which is one of the things she loved doing. And we sang to her on the piano. And it was very intentional and very beautiful and extremely powerful, because her light, I could see her light becoming energy. And it was just really amazing
Wow.
and sad, but amazing. And Bella, who was 6 years younger, she was fine. And I was creating a new bond with her over a period of time. And 6 weeks later, she transitioned unexpectedly,
Oh,
not
wow.
sick, not, it was completely unexpected. And it was such a traumatic shock for me. And this happened the day before the last day of shooting.
Mm.
So I had to go to set and I had to wrap up this film. And I told my team what happened. And I said, under any circumstances, we are not to talk about this. I have to work today. I am raw. I have to be able to do my job. So please do not say, I'm sorry, don't hug me,
Yeah.
nothing. Like, it's a job.
Yeah.
And so we finished the day and it starts pouring outside. And the DP said, wouldn't it be cool if we could shoot you outside dancing in the rain? And I said, let's do it. So I went outside and I danced in the rain. And I look up and I realized it was Lola and Bella's tears coming down on me, saying it was going to be okay.
Mm.
That's the evidence that I'm talking about. When you pay attention to what's around you and you take action, there is magic. And it was an incredible, beautiful moment that is now in the film.
Oh, that's really cool. I can't wait to watch.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch. You've written a couple of books now too. When talk to me about that process and I know writing a book is a huge effort, writing two, obviously, twice as much. What was the gap in between the two? And tell me just a little bit about your books before we wrap up.
For sure. The first book is called The Influential Voice: Saying What You Mean for Lasting Legacy. And it's really a how to be an amazing human book disguised as a public speaking book. It's half memoir, half effective communication skills. And I was shopping this book around for several months, and several publishers were interested, but nobody was willing to give me a deal. And what I realized, Ken, was as I was shopping this around, I didn't want to write a book about public speaking. I wanted to write a book about how to be an amazing human and good leader. And after George Floyd's murder, I sat down and wrote chapter one. I shared it with a publisher and I got a book deal on Monday.
Oh, wow.
And so that is a really good example of, if you're not aligned with what you're doing, everyone else is going to be not aligned with what you're doing. So be truthful and honest and aligned with what you care about so that the right people can give you the support you need. Um, it's on Amazon. It's on Audible. I recorded the audiobook. I hired my lyricist composer to write music, so it's got unique musical score to it. And the second book is called The Invitation: Vital Conversations About Menopause, which I never thought in a million years I would write a book about menopause.
Mm.
It's not on brand at all. However, I want to give voice to people. That's what I do. And if I can give voice and create a community for women and their partners to not feel alone, then I'm also creating the legacy and the impact that I want to create with that book. The first book I wrote in 10 days because COVID hit and Joe and I couldn't go to Mexico for 10 days. So I stayed off, didn't go to work. And I took those 10 days and I wrote the book, first draft. That was really intense. And Vital Conversations about Menopause was a completely different experience. I wanted to have a really intimate, personal experience. So I reached out to a friend of mine, Alexandra Stockwell, and I said, would you like to co author this book? And how I want to do it is by inviting you to my home and having a conversation. And we'll record the conversations, we'll transcribe it, and then we'll turn it into a book. And we'll interview people and we'll create an environment of safety and of vulnerability so that when women and their partners read this book, they can see themselves in us. And that's what we did.
Very cool. And when did that come out?
That came out probably year and a half, 2 years ago.
So
Yeah.
you and so you've got a lot of things going on, obviously, with the books and everything, but I know that your sort of claim to fame is getting the stories out. I think from the from leaders that have story. Well, everybody's got a story to tell, but what I'm curious of, because I know you prep people for TED Talks as you started to do right back then, but is a lot of what you do helping a leader to like clarify their vision, as an example, or is it always for like a keynote or whatever? Does that make sense? Because I think there's a lot of like brilliant people that don't know how to get it out. You know what I mean? Just get out what they're trying to do.
Right. Well, that's my experience as a director. My
Yeah.
job is to bring out of the actor everything that's in there. And my work with top level leaders and professionals is strategic advisor work. I help you think about your thoughts and how to communicate them. I help you write your book. I help you write your talk. I help you think about your business. I help you think about how to lead your team so it's more efficient and effective. And because I've been an entrepreneur my entire life. So I know how to lead and I know how to distill that information now in service of the leaders that I support. So yes, it's about voice, it's about permission, it's about transformation, but it's also about how do I do it? How do I command a room? How do I command my board of directors? How do I, as a startup, get investors to trust me and to invest in my company? All of that. How do I run for office? I had the privilege of supporting Catherine Garcia when she ran against Eric Adams for mayor. That was one of my proudest moments to be able to coach her on the debate stage. And so I love being able to be behind the scenes to help elevate and amplify the voices of people who are making huge impact in the world.
Do you feel like because of the level of clientele that you're dealing with, I guess if they're coming to you, they're ready for help, but do you get resistance? Do you get ego, or do you generally have an okay time with it? You're smiling, so I feel like there's something more to that.
Oh, there's so much ego. There's
Yeah.
so much ego. There's so many bad habits.
Mm,
And for me, that's super fun because I just wait until they recognize that it's their ego. And I don't really have to do anything except be present. And before they know it, they're aware, oh my gosh, this is such a terrible habit. Or why do I keep walking into a room having to prove myself and all it does is repel everyone?
right. Right.
It's my favorite when I get to see people recognize this themselves by simply being present and reflecting.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for being here. What's the best way for people to reach out to you if they're interested in that?
I'm on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
I'm on Instagram. I would love to give your audience
please.
a free gift.
Yay.
Speaking of commanding a room, there's an on demand free virtual masterclass called Command Any Room, and it's at triciabrouk.com/command, and it's free. And yeah, feel free to reach out to me, DM me, let me know what you're up to so that I can support you. And it's such a pleasure to be here with you, Ken, on your podcast.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it. Really good to meet you. Thank you.